Hi everyone, my name is Shazia Khan, and the unit that we'll be doing today is reflective teaching, and the learning outcome we'll be doing today is learning outcome 3, which is to be able to use reflection to support your own professional development. So before I go into learning outcome 3, I just want to give you a recap of what we did in the last learning outcome, which is learning outcome 2. So learning outcome was 2 for reflective teaching unit was to do with knowing how to reflect on your own education and training practice. We looked at elements of creating a reflective environment in learning outcome 2. We also looked at analysing your own actions and decisions, and also considered identifying strengths and areas of improvement. We looked at setting goals for professional growth and taking action and reflecting on the impact of these changes as well, why they have an impact on us. We then went on to look at elements of 2.1, which was to identify current performance requirements relevant to our own practice. And we considered some steps that we looked at. Firstly, we looked at reviewing job description or role expectations, so examining what job the organisation has provided, identifying key responsibilities, etc. We then went on to look at consulting policies and guidelines, and we familiarised ourselves with different policies and guidelines that are in place that's set by the professional bodies and also by the guidelines by the government. We looked at staying updated with staying updated with industry trends and best practices. We looked at seeking feedback and evaluation and why that is so important for elements of trying to look at our reflective teaching, but also our personal development. We then went on to look at 2.2, which was to evaluate different tools for use in reflective teaching. We looked at reflective journals and why they were so important when trying to reflect on a lesson, or, it gives you time to write everything down and reflect on your teaching practice. We looked at reflection templates, peer observations and feedbacks. We looked at video or audio recording. We looked at reflective blogs or online platforms, professional learning communities, mentorship programs, data analysis. We then went on to look at 2.3, which is to analyse the importance of using feedback from different sources to inform reflective practice. So we looked at elements of diverse perspectives, so feedback from various sources such as students, it may be administrators, parents. We'll give you a diverse perspective on the teaching practices. Objective assessment. We looked at student-centred approach and professional growth and development and targeted areas for improvement. We looked at self-awareness and building collaborative relationships and why that was so important. We then went on to look at 2.4, which was assess the extent to which our own practice is inclusive and promotes equality and diversity. Here we looked at the curriculum and the content and how it related to inclusivity and diversity. We looked at assessment and feedback. So we looked at classroom dynamics and relationships. We looked at professional development in regards to, reflecting on our own knowledge and engaging. We also looked at elements of the pedagogy and instructional strategies and how they related to things like, reflecting on our teaching methods, accommodating different learning styles, assessing how students engage well with certain theories and certain styles, and actively getting them participated in the learning process, getting the learners involved and making sure that they're engaging. Also, we looked at how you would incorporate diversity into your teaching approaches and how you would cater for a diverse cohort of students. Why is diversity so important? Making resources diverse, you know, making them diverse so that it promotes a sense of belonging for all learners rather than some learners, you know, reflecting on, you know, how diverse your learners are. Make sure you evaluate inclusivity, respectfulness, and avoid any sort of bias and stereotypical assessment and feedback. We looked at professional development. So that was learning outcome 2. Okay, so it's just giving you a recap of what we've done in learning outcome 2. Now we're going on to learning outcome 3, which is looking at elements of reflection to support our own professional development. So the indicative content is to an application of reflective practice, how and where to seek information about current practice, best practice, sources of feedback on practice, seeking a critique of skills, knowledge, and practical competence, observations, mentoring and critical friend model, gathering and record information in order to engage CPD, continuous professional development, and influences on our own skills and knowledge and practical competencies. The key terminology is how to use reflection to support our own personal development. So, you know, using reflection is a powerful tool for growth, you know, setting yourself goals, making sure you are asking yourself questions and self-assessing. You will, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, any areas that need improvement, setting goals for yourself, you know, identifying areas that you want to improve in yourself, you know, making sure that you evaluate that as well. Make sure that you, it's all about giving yourself areas to improve or to develop, self-reflection, seeking feedback, you know, whether you are a student or whether you constantly, you know, you need to develop your knowledge and skills, and undertaking reflections can help you to think about areas that you work on as well as you want what you are doing, you know, so making sure you're self-reflecting. And also reflection enables professionals to assess their actions, successes and failures, leading to constant improvement in practice. Through evaluating what worked well and what didn't, one can refine approaches and practices to make them more effective. And, you know, professional self-reflection is really important for professional development. It means that a potential impact of your performance or the way you interact with colleagues or clients. So self-reflecting on professional situations will help you identify areas of improvement or simply assist you to consider how you might do things differently in the future. So, you know, how you would reflect on things, how would you reflect on your, you know, your development, and how would you contribute to that? So analyze your strengths and weaknesses and areas for growth, you know, analyze what your strengths and weaknesses are, you know, make sure that you are able to, you know, identify any sort of goals that you want to meet. You know, it's always important to analyze your strengths and weaknesses, and make sure that you're able to look at what is a good thing for you. Plan and take action. So put an action plan together based on your reflection and any areas for development or growth, and work towards that. Identify any sort of resources you may need, and incorporate them into your plan as well. It's really important to identify them and turn them into an action point for yourself. Implement and reflect on changes. So if there's any changes you need to make them, implement them and improve them. Learn from experience. So continuously learn from your experience, both successes and challenges. Make sure you are on top of things and make sure you're learning through that. Engage in continuous learning. And this is really important because, you know, you need to make sure that as an individual, you are staying up to date. Everything you do, your research trends, you know, reading around certain areas, participating in workshops, seminars, engaging on online opportunities, you know, engage in continuous learning because that is a good thing. You know, all the time evolve, it makes you evolve and it's the best way to learn things. Networking and collaboration, that's again another really important part. Make sure you are collaborating and networking with everyone. You're participating in professional communities, joining forums, reflect on your achievements, so reflect on your milestones, and you sort of celebrate your growth and progress. Recognize positive impact, because it's really important that you recognize your positive impacts on these things. Make sure you are able to identify how you're doing well. And remember that reflection should be continuous process. Reflection is part of your life, and it will be an ongoing process for you all the time. So this is a video here that you could watch in your own time, and it's on reflective practice and self assessment. And these are two elements that are really important when it comes to any sort of teaching style. Self-assessing, so you can understand your own strengths and where development might be needing, and reflecting allows you to understand how to help others and achieve your practical goals. Self-reflection and self-assessment are really important, in element of any sort of any sort of experience that you want to integrate. So that video is there on Moodle for you to watch in your own time. Now we're going to look at identifying goals to improve our own practice. So how we identify these goals, why there's a need to have goals in place for reflective practice, and to have what are the goals of reflective practice. So it gives you areas to develop on or improve, whether it is in the workplace or outside the workplace. You're constantly being asked for ways in which you are able to develop and your knowledge and skills. Undertaking reflections can help you think about areas you can work on, as well as what you are doing well. So make sure you are able to set yourself goals, and it could be things like the first one, instructional strategies. What are instructional strategies? Teaching strategies, and these are methods that teachers use to deliver courses material in a way that keeps the student engaged and practicing different skill sets. So it's really important for the individual to have these in place, because it keeps the students engaged, but also it gets them wanting to do more all the time. An instructor may select different teaching strategies for instructional strategies according to the unit topic, grade level, the class size, and classroom resources. So, you need to make sure that you are introducing, incorporating different things into incorporating them into your classroom and your resources. And an example of that is, for example, making sure that you have evidence-based instructional strategies that you can use in the classroom, assessing prior knowledge when you introduce new topics, ask the students, how do you know where to begin, group work, things like checking for understanding. Making sure you provide feedback, teaching strategies, make sure you incorporate technology into your teaching practices. And then you've got assessment and feedback. And, feedback and assessment is really important. The goal of it is to enhance your assessment methods to provide more meaningful and timely feedback to your students. Make sure that you also prepare yourself for the next assessment tasks. Evidence is collected via assessments. It includes pre-assessments, formative and summative. Feedback is informative. Teachers, they will always want to give you that form of feedback, and make sure that you implement formative techniques, utilize rubrics, and promote student growth. That will help the element of trying to get the learner to improve their teaching and learning. So feedback is really good all the time. Classroom management, the next one. So making sure that, the strategies create a positive and inclusive classroom environment. Make sure that, the classroom encompasses a variety of skills and techniques that can create this learning environment. Implement behavior management. establish clear expectations or promote a positive, education-focused classroom management, this learning environment. Differentiation and personalization. So while differentiation instruction keeps instructors as the drivers in adapting the lesson to address different students' needs, personalized learning emphasizes on students' agency and autonomy in creating their education. So, tailor it around the diverse needs of your individual students, use data instructional decisions, make sure you are using it to identify and make it more autonomous for the students. Culturally responsive teaching, and this is a bridge between home and school life, affirming of students' history and culture, and centering student voices and learning styles in the lessons and classroom experiences. So making sure you have this culturally responsive teaching environment to create that learning environment that validate and reflect diversity, identities and experiences of all students. And making sure that, you have that perspective in place when integrating that into your teaching. Professional collaboration and growth. So collaboration and experiential learning is essential professional goal. Engage in collaborative professional learning opportunities to enhance the practice. Example, join a professional learning community. Technology is another one that's quite a big part of any sort of integration in teaching. It's one of the main elements of teaching, is it's there to enhance and educate individuals and effectively integrate that into your teaching. Explore new technology tools, literacy, create learning resources for the individual. Make sure that they're able to, use the IT resources and provide them training. Reflective practice and self-reflection. So make sure you are you are in the habit of self-reflecting and continuous improvement in your teaching practice. Set aside, dedicated self-reflection, maintain a journal and give yourself feedback and get others to give you feedback on that. Self-reflection is really important, and reflecting practices can enable practitioners to learn from experience about themselves, their work, and how to improve their work. And then we've got inclusive and equity-minded instruction. So develop strategies to create a more inclusive and equitable learning environment. Make sure that you have created this learning environment and getting everyone involved in it. And it needs to be, no matter what their lifestyle or their identity is, it works towards a future which neither identity nor social social history predict academic outcomes. So make sure, you are having this equity-minded instructions. So professional development in specific content areas. So the goal is to deepen your knowledge, expertise in specific content areas relevant to teaching. Make sure that, you attend professional development workshops, any courses, professional growth and contribute to any sort of professional growth in regards to that. And here you could use the SMART acronym in identifying that. So whether they are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-bound, and defining these parameters as they appertain your goal, and helps you ensure the objectives that you want to, reach as well. Make sure that you are able to apply them so that you reach your goal. Review 3.2, review and update action plans to address outcomes of reflection. Reflect on your initial action plan, in which you should write about what you're going to do differently next time, what steps you're going to take. Reflect on by revisiting it as well. and making sure that you're evaluating and looking at reflecting on that and reviewing your goals, your strategies that you perform, analyze. The next one is analyze your reflection goals, outcomes, sorry. If you're reflecting on a project, course or task, speak on the strengths and weaknesses of the process and result. Try to, look at the outcome of your reflection. Reflect on your progress made towards your goals and challenges, and whether there've been any successes or not. So you're able to reflect on the system and reflect on your outcomes. Identify strengths for improvement, and this is really important when you look at identifying strengths for improvement. You need to be looking at any sort of, if there's any strengths and areas for improvement from this reflection. Acknowledge them areas, maybe improving communication skills, maybe enhancing management skills, building emotional critical skills, improving your problem solving skills. So it could be identify these areas for further areas of improvement that you could use. So the next one is to align goals with reflection. Align goals with reflection outcomes. So compare your initial action plan with the outcomes and the reflection, and determine the relevant goals and whether they align with any sort of elements. Modify strategies and timeline. Assess the effectiveness of the strategies you outline in the initial action plan, and consider whether there are any adjustments in modification. Seek additional resources and support. So identify any additional resources or support that may be helpful in addressing any outcomes, and determine whether these resources can support you in the action plan. And also, identify any, establish any measurable indicators. So define measurable indicators that will allow you to monitor and assess your progress, set benchmarks, set boundaries, and gauge them, and make sure you have a progress in place. Establish measurable indicators. The next one is implement updated action plan. Make sure you have an action plan in place. Make sure you are able to identify what you want to do and what you want to improve. Make sure you regularly reflect and evaluate, continuously reflect on and evaluate your progress. Regularly assess the effectiveness of your strategies and make adjustments. By reviewing and updating your action plan, the outcomes, you ensure that professional development remains relevant, focused, and aligned with the aspirations as well. 3.3, review the effectiveness of newly acquired knowledge and skills on practice. So reviewing the effectiveness of newly acquired knowledge and skills on practice is crucial to assess the impact of your professional development. Here are some steps. Define the evaluation. So evaluation criteria and benchmark standards, make sure you evaluate them against the effectiveness and your professional goals. And if there's any sort of elements of, student outcomes, enhanced practices, gather, the next one is gather evidence. Make sure, you gather evidence that is in line with the knowledge and skills practice. Make sure you are including classroom observations, student sample work, student feedback as well, and that plays a big part in gathering evidence. Analyze data and evidence. Make sure you analyze the data and the trends and the improvements that need to be made, and areas for any sort of direct improvements that need to be made. Reflect on personal observations. Again, this is really important, reflecting on observations, personal observations, because you're able to, accept that there's any necessary change that needs to be made and what they're observing, reflective, moving any sort of boundaries as well, and influences your practices. Seek feedback. That's really, really important. Seeking any sort of feedback means taking on where you can improve and how you could improve, and any sort of developmental feedback. Consider student outcomes. Make sure you are looking at what the positive performance is of the students and assess whether there has been a positive change in student performance. Engage in self-reflection. Self-reflection is a skill that can help you understand yourself better. Self-reflection involves being present with yourself and intentionally focusing your attention inward to examine your thoughts, feelings, actions, and motivations. Making sure that you are, aligning with any sort of standards that you need to meet, reflecting on how effectively you have integrated the new knowledge and skills you daily practice. So it's really important in regards to that. The next one is looking at using technology and resources to keep you up to date and up to date. So it's really important to use different technology and resources online because it helps you build embrace this continuous learning. You're reading new news regulations, you're getting technology into your teaching, which is helping, and it's also fosters student engagement and students that are visual learners, for them to integrate into PowerPoints, games, these kind of online resources. So the first one is online resources and webinars. So webinars and online courses serve distinct purposes in the realm of digital education. While webinars excel at delivering concise, real-time content, online courses offer a more profound, more comprehensive learning experience. And for the students and yourself, it's really important you get this into your professional learning. Educational blogs and podcasts, which we went through in Learning Outcome 2 as well. And they're really important in regards to creating they're created for educational purposes, and they're huge institutional potential as an online resource. And there are many ways to use educational blog, and they offer many different benefits as well. So it's really good in regards to that. And then podcasting is where the teacher presents a narrative or a lecture to the student and is explaining the concepts and theory, and you can use this moment with the learners to give a short overview of the course's content and highlight important research in the field, maybe case studies, expert, interviewed. There are difference between, but they are used in education, which enhances students' learning. Things like, Utopia, Edutopia, Tech Thought, Cult of Pedagogy, and the Ed podcast, social media and social net and professionals networking. Whether it's things like LinkedIn or, Twitter or Facebook, it engages the learners and also engages them in discussions, sharing resources and learning from experiences and expertise of other educators. They serve as a virtual networking event and accessible around the clock, and to opening doors to global, connections. It could be, things like maximizing any sort of professional updating, inclusivity, for students and for teachers. It's really good because it's a way of engaging with everyone outside, engaging with different students, but also focusing on interaction with different businesses and things like that. Online forums and communities and forums, they are really important because they participate in online communities and forums. So an online forum and community is an online space created by an organization or brand where members, customers and fans ask questions, receive any sort of peer-to-peer support, discuss interests. And, it's forms like, education weeks, teachers so share ideas and questions and discuss forums and things. It's really interesting. Then you've got an open educational resources, and these are freely publicized teaching, learning and research resources that reside in a public domain and released to permit the free use of everyone. So things like Khan Academy, OER Commons, these platforms are often free educational materials, educational apps and software. Virtual conferences obviously where the elements of, enhancing your teaching practices virtually, but also getting others involved. Educational apps and software is regarding things like, apps that will be available for free apps to support teaching professional, things like Quizlet, Adobe Park. It could be creating lesson planning, classroom management, research and scholarly journals. So looking at journals, platforms like Google Scholar, Justo, academic databases provide a wide range of literature that you could use. Then you've got virtual conferences and workshops. These are masterclasses, a combination of virtual conferences and workshops and professional development events. So many organizations and educational institutions now offer online events and provide opportunities for people to network and gaining new perspectives of ideas and sharing of ideas. Professional learning communities. So what are professional learning communities? And this is a group of educators that meet regularly and frequently throughout the year to learn from each other with the goal of improving student outcomes, collaborating with colleagues to share ideas, best practices, and engage in reflective dialogue. Professional legal communities are a way of, getting to know others in the same area, but also working together to create a more collaboration among staff. Professional learning community can be used interchangeably to refer to professional development teacher, proprietary programs, but a professional learning community is meant to solely focus on students' outcome, which will include improving teaching practices. Like I said, PLCs require sustained effort and are more interactive and differentiated to meet teacher and students' needs. Professional development is generally a one-time workshop. The learning is not differentiated for teachers. The goals of professional learning communities are to improve outcomes, distribute leadership responsibilities among all staff, and create strong teams that have the ability to tackle through tough issues with trust, shared cooperation, and honest debate. The professional learning communities improve knowledge and skills quickly because of discussion, learning, and rapid implementation. And the professional learning communities, students, they benefit students by increasing academic gains, creating an equitable learning environment, closing achievement gaps, increasing student engagement and participation, and decreasing absentees. Continuous online collaboration, resource sharing, so utilizing platforms like Google Drive, Microsoft Teams, or cloud-based to collaborate with colleagues and share resources, and engage in virtual lesson planning and curriculum development and collaborative projects, making sure that you are working with others to collaborate together. Educational research and think tanks. So these are where you follow educational research organizations that produce high quality research and reports in educational topics. So it could be different topics that they could apply on, and they work around that. Continuous learning platforms, and these are training programs engage with continuous platforms such as TED, LinkedIn Learning, YouTube, and these platforms provide bite-sized videos and training programs, external workshops, and there are learning portal. It could be different areas, and it could be approaches to learning models using data or continuous learning. And then remember to evaluate the credibility and relevance of resources and technologies you use. Seek out reputable sources and platforms that align with your professional goals and the needs of your students. Embrace a growth mindset and make continuous learning and a self-improvement a part of a professional. So the more you learn, the more you develop your skills, the more technologies you introduce, the more you're going to learn about the institution and yourself as an entity as well. So 3.5, share. By sharing, share knowledge, skills and improvements to practice colleagues where it is likely to benefit. So sharing your skills with other colleagues is valuable, you know, and is knowledgeable, and employees support each other, you know, by doing this and making sure that there are different strategies in place to do this. Sharing your expertise, you know, it's really good for teachers to share that, your skills, your knowledge, supporting each other, you know, making sure there's, you know, you're introducing best practices, you know, sharing best practices can improve team performance and foster a culture of like continuous learning within an organization. And, you know, by doing this, you're not reinventing anything, and, you know, you're accelerating growth within the college itself. So informal discussions and conversations. So make sure you engage in informal discussions and conversation with colleagues during break, staff, so you collaborate with each other. You know, you make sure that you are sharing things with each other. And it's not something, you know, share ideas, you know, you start a conversation, talk about these things in an informal discussion. Professional learning communities, again, participate in them so that you're able to learn provide a structured platform, make sure that you are collaborating specific topics, engaging in reflective discussion, you know, ways to improve your practice, ways to make sure that, you know, you are getting, you know, everything across, you know, and making sure that, you know, teams are creating this environment where they are working together, collaborating together to make sure that they have outcomes in place, that they want to create this value and focus on teams. So learning together is really, really important for them. Presentation and workshops. So offer present and facilitate workshops during professional development days, share your ideas and your topics, and, you know, whether they found them effective or not, use multimedia, use technology, use activities to engage with other colleagues and get them involved in your teaching and learning. Lesson study or peer observation, engage in collaborative practice, learn peer observation, invite colleagues to observe your lessons. You know, that some people, you know, may be reluctant and scared of that, but it's quite good because you're going to get feedback, reflective feedback and constructive feedback to try and improve your growth and help you develop more. Online collaboration platforms, so utilize any sort of online collaboration platforms such as Google Drive, which I mentioned earlier, Teams, lesson plans, strategies, create this shared. Educators can contribute. Newsletters and blogs, start a professional blog or newsletter where you can share your reflections with other teachers, resources, and what are good practices, because, you know, some people don't know what good practices are. If you share them ideas with other people, you are sharing good practice. You know, maybe, you know, it could be a change in, you know, some sort of IT resources. You are sharing them so that you could, you know, consider that you are bringing them, you know, it gives you value in regards to sharing with your other teachers and sharing with the other employees. Staff training sessions, so offer to lead training sessions on specific topics in line with your expertise. Create interactive, you know, sessions. Provide, you know, provide any sort of practical takeaways so that they use it in their own experiences. You know, you are sharing with your colleagues, you're sharing knowledge that is relevant and valuable both to the colleagues and to the learners to make that, you know, teaching a huge part of your learning, you know, sharing, joining conversations, seeking feedback, mentorship, peer learning, things like that. This will help you build, and the more constructive feedback you get, the better you will get. Mentorship and coaching, as we mentioned, mentorship and coaching in learning outcome 2 as well. Mentor or coach someone who are seeking guidance and support in specific areas. Share your knowledge and skills. You know, you are there to share your knowledge and skills and any best practices that you want to put in place. You know, make sure you are getting them involved in any sort of trainings. If there's development areas, you know, make sure they can perform better. And knowledge sharing is really increases productivity, helps everyone. So make sure you do that as well. Social media, online communities, like we said, engage with educational communities on social media platforms such as Twitter, LinkedIn, or educational forums. Share your insights and resources. Make sure you are able to answer questions and contribute to the knowledge of that, because having this knowledge will build this these best practice. You will be able to cascade your knowledge to others. Reflective practice groups. So form or join a reflective practice group where educators can come together and share reflection ideas. People want to share ideas. Teachers want to share ideas, and it will build this rapport with you and the other organization or other teachers, having these forums in place, having these ideas and resources in place, sharing good practice, your professional communities to help identify any sort of challenges they're having. You may be able to reflect with them, try to help them, and collaborate. You do create this discussion forum where you can all work together and share ideas. It's so important to share good practice in teaching, because it builds this rapport with other learners, and also one person may share an idea that you will use in your class. And remember to be respectful of colleagues' time and interests. So be open by receiving feedbacks, even if it's constructive feedback. It gives you feedback on how you could improve your teaching, or gives you ideas. Make sure you are taking that on board and not feeling pressured when you get constructive feedback. And try to foster a culture of collaboration, continuous improvement, and make sure your skills are put in practice to contribute to your professional growth and also their professional growth. Ultimately, it will be them benefiting from this and sharing all these best practices and knowledge and cascading information. So we've finished learning outcome 3 now. These are some of the resources we've used for learning outcome 3. So you could link on to them and get them resources to help you. So just to give you a recap of what we've done in learning outcome 3, which is to be able to look at using reflection to support our own professional development. So today we looked at application of reflection practice. We looked at how and where to seek information about current best practices, sources of information and feedback. We looked at elements of, identifying good practices, and looked at CPD, professional development. We looked at elements of competencies, observations, mentoring and critical friend model, recording, engaging, professional development, how to identify goals to improve our own practice through the process of reflection. We looked at instructional strategies. We looked at assessment and feedback, and we looked at elements of professional development. We also looked at reviewing the effectiveness of newly acquired knowledge and skills on practice, and also looked at elements of using technologies and resources to keep us up to date, and continuous learning platforms. So that was what we looked at in learning outcome 3, which is the session we've just done today. The plenary refer to any ebooks and journals on Moodle that you could use for the unit. These recordings are learning outcome 1, 2, and 3. The recordings are available for you on Moodle. And please, there's a link there. There's some practice toolkit that you can read around in regards to teaching and learning and any sort of areas of reflective practice. Any queries you have, email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. And submission of the assignment to be done on learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. And once the next session is on assignment discussion. So once we've done that session, you can start working on that assignment, and you have 2 weeks to submit the assignment. So if you have any questions, please email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Thank you for attending today's session. The next session is the assignment discussion session, and all these are recorded and put on Moodle for you. Thank you.